exhale, slowly wiggle your fingers, open your eyes, and come back to the space. Thank you. Our intention for this gathering is to be in community with each other and for personal and communal reflection on how we are creating space for our own soul care as we companion others. So I invite you in silence to reflect on the questions that we asked and to write your responses in the chat box to the following question. What nourishes you as you companion others during these challenging times? What nourishes you as you challenge others during these challenging times? So just take a little time in silence and see what stirs for you. This is absolutely beautiful. Stephen, can you read some of these for us? Maybe we have time for 5 or 6 of them. These are just amazing.
It reminds me of the person who tried to catch the stream in his hands.
My goodness.
And ended up with only a bit of water, which then trickled through his fingers. First of all, I would say I will do my best to download these and get them available so we can have some time to look at them. We clearly have hundreds of people on this call. Thank you. And I will read them as they come up. Lisa says, what nourishes me is my commitment, and I'm going to try and stop it if I can, is my commitment to my ministry and to be present to each of those I companion, because the commitment compels prayer, contemplation, and intimate relationship with God, thereby receiving the graces needed for self-care that overflow for caring to others. Quiet meditation and centering prayer with my candles, lavender, and a single sentence from the Gospel of John. Feeling all the feelings, this is from Liz, from loss to joy, practicing self-compassion. You can feel the warmth and love in all of these. It is a joy to see others refocusing on their core connection with God. Many say they're finding peace. My challenge is to bring those deeply affected by the virus to peace. That's from Melinda. Yvonne says, taking the larger view, humanity has experienced pandemics throughout all times. We are part of that humanity. The evergreen outside my office window, the gift of what's wrapping, family who cannot be here, and silent prayer.
So if we could collectively just take a contemplative pause and honor all that people have written. Thank you. This is such a gift. Thank you. Ravi.
Yes. Welcome to everybody. It is a joy to be with all of you. And I'm hoping this time will be a time of nourishment, of direction, companionship. To start with, again, I ask you to find your comfort place internally. I invite you to go into the sanctuary, the sanctum of your heart, the cave of your heart, your cell, and close the doors and be inside for a while. In my tradition as Hindu, we go into these sanctuaries both to encounter the mystery and to be seen by the mystery. So in this sacred space, find what you need. Let yourself be seen fully. If being seen doesn't work for you, find what does in that safe place with you and mystery. Let yourself be held. All of you. Your fabulousness, your brokenness, the work you want to do, the work you're called to do, the grief, all of it. Invite you back to our community gathering. We know as spiritual companions in our own lives and lives of others that even a few minutes of slowing down, of getting to that place can make a big difference. And in these times where we are looking at what we can do for soul care for ourselves, looking at what is our role with our communities, families, directees, and what we are called to do to be of service to the whole community. We have to start with ourselves and keep finding those places where we can be nourished, centered, and to accept all the emotions that come up. I had to go to the store the other day, and it was early morning, there were senior hours, and getting there in Los Angeles, there was no traffic. I got to the store, I got things done. My neighborhoods have people always on the streets. Everywhere there's activity, there are bicyclists. There was no one. And I found myself crying. I found myself just missing the ordinary, the things I took for granted for so long. And I just stopped and let myself cry. And for each of us, how do we accept everything and anything we are going through? To come from that place. And for some, there is not always a choice. Whether when you have children, if you are in the place where you're essential workers, there is not much space. But we know that even 2 minutes can do that. So I want to talk a little about how do we find a rhythm that's healthy? Well, how do we find a rhythm that's sustainable in a world that's changing every day, every hour? to know how to take care of ourselves, what we are called to do, to take care of others, to be of service to the world. What's that rhythm in your life? What do you need today? And sometimes metaphors help. It's almost like I feel I'm in the season between winter and spring. There are times that desolation, that isolation, that emptiness is what I'm going through. And sometimes a lot of sadness, even though there are gifts in that time. Sometimes I'm in spring. I can see new growth. I have energy to do more. So I go to and fro. And so every day, how do I find that rhythm? And if we find that rhythm in small things, it'll help us find the rhythm in bigger things. So I invite you to look at how do we make the new ordinary sacred, day by day, minute by minute. And not how can that become second nature? For example, for me, I have to stop and I have a timer after work to go out, look at the outside. I live on top of a hill. I'll go out for a walk. I'll give a friend a call. To find a rhythm that allows me to do what I'm called to do. And as caregivers, as soul care workers, we always tend to do more. And I heard this term, it's like frantic panic work. Even though we are contemplatives, there is so much to be done, and we are going from activity to be of service to others. And how do we find a rhythm that works? How do you find that? What helps you day by day, minute by minute? What things can you cultivate for yourself to find that rhythm? I'm going to give you a little time to just ponder that. If you have some things, please put them in the notes.
And I have, Ravi, put the question written down there, summarized, not as beautifully as you spoke it. And let me know when you're ready.
Let's give a moment more, let people. Yeah, Stephen, if you could read some.
This is from Rosemary. Making the new ordinary sacred by awakening each morning and asking God to help me see the generous love so openly flowing today, to hear the call that is mine to share peace and even laughter with others. This could be the beginning of a greater vision of caring for one another. I anchor my day with 2 20-minute centering prayer times, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Kamala says, I call on the feminine wisdom that no longer feels like a choice. but a place of being in divine flow, accepting God's little gifts, and feeling enlightened with Zen law. Karen says, to be in the stance of gratitude. Amen, Karen. Susan says, the small moments are all we have right now, aren't they? And they offer such a beautiful invitation to pause and offer gratitude. I started noontime walks with my husband, says Nancy. It's a beautiful time of reconnection and recentering. I find focus, says Patty. I find the rhythm by focusing on one thing at a time, not multitasking. One step at a time, one day at a time, always with God as my companion, with attention focused on God's presence in all things. Sherry says, labyrinth walking helps me in spending time in a sensory garden. Pat says, I no longer use an alarm clock, but am following my body's rhythms. I am not pushing myself late into the night to accomplish things, rather giving myself permission to put a project aside for tomorrow. I think, says Lori, I am still in the process at the moment. The working through stages of grief, and now how do I maintain sacredness? The daily rituals, the purposeful time of contemplation, the quieting of my soul, prayer, lots of prayer. Beth says mindfulness. And so many other wonderful answers. Thank you.
Stephen. In closing, as we try and find that rhythm and the sacred in the ordinary, how can we cultivate, and this is not for reading out, but just for you to keep pondering, it's so critical that we make discernment a way of life, not about a particular thing, but how do we cultivate listening deeply to hear what is needed. Today, do I need to take care of myself, to have strength to reach out to someone? Do I need to say yes to this project? Cultivating the art of discernment day-to-day life. So with that, we'll take a pause, and then Cynthia will take over.
Actually, Karen will take over.
My heart is so full right now. And thank you, Ravi, for naming the rhythm and the flow, and specifically for naming discernment too. It's something we think about, we talk about, we guide other people in, our own spiritual directors guide us in that. And it has been a cornerstone for me in a very particular way during this time. So I just want to lift up discernment, kind of taking it from you, Ravi, and lift it up. And for me, it's come in the form of this question: what is being asked of me now? And that now can be like in any given moment, during the day, at night, even sometimes at 2:30 in the morning when my brain wakes up. What's being asked of me now is to go back to sleep. But we're in this disorienting and reorienting collective moment. And so that for each of us to find that question that's simple, that we can return to, that's a resting place. So I just offer that question to all of you. What is being asked of me now? For yourself, for the people in your life, for the directees that you serve, for the communities you serve, and for this incredible net of connection that we're all part of. So I just want to pause there for a second, and actually I'm going to put it in the chat box. And as you're all sitting with this question, I would also encourage you to notice any sensations that come up as you sit with that question. There's not only how we think that question, how we cognitively and emotionally process that question, there's also tuning into the feeling of how we're being called, the sensation of that invitation, of that sacred invitation. What is being asked of me now? Do you feel it in your belly, the soles of your feet, tingling of your hands, some way that not only are you processing the question as a thought or an idea or an emotion, but also a physical sensation of inquiry. Before I asked Stephen to read some of your beautiful words, I also want to add that I have been asking my ancestors what is being asked of me now. To drawing strength. I feel tears in my eyes as I'm saying this. Those who have come before us, drawing on their strength and their love and their capacity beyond what we can even grasp, the capacity to turn to our ancestors and even to those for whom we will become ancestors, the generations that will come after us. What is being asked of us now? Stephen, whenever you're ready to lift up some voices.
I just, before I read a few, just asking everyone here, hundreds of people all together, to treat this in a contemplative way. Let all these things, beautiful things as they are written and they scroll down, let them be written in your heart. And don't worry that you can't read them all. Just let them feel them. It's a wonderful feeling. Oh my goodness. Grateful to be here. So let me read some. To hold on to love, says Karen. To let go, says Elle. Those two sum it up, right? Receiving and giving. Oh my goodness. To acknowledge and be grateful for all the ways I am so richly resourced. clear from some of the comments, people called to support those in prisons and to actively support them, especially as they are particularly at risk during this pandemic. To discern ways that I can be more generous. I am jangled in disorientation, says one of us. This is a time to be gentle and generous with myself, to be part of a transformation of society toward wildness and living from authenticity and joy and providing supports to myself and others to do this, to stay in the present, to support my congregation through spiritual companioning. I know this is something many of you do. Being attentive to my feelings of overwhelm, and when they arise, to let go of all that is out there and come in to care for myself. Come in to care for myself. To hold the sadness of others who suffer during this time. To listen to music as well as podcasts. And you'll have a chance to listen to music at the end of the session. Grace, graciousness, gratitude is being asked of me now. So many wonderful replies. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And in Jewish spiritual practice, when we've heard somebody speak, sometimes when we finish speaking, we'll say, Dibarti, I've spoken. And the listener will say, Shamati, I've heard you, or Shamanu, we hear each other. So I just want to say Shamati and Shamanu to all of you.
So beautiful. So beautiful. These comments just are so life-giving. So one of the things that I want to talk about is a combination of what Ravi and Karen have been talking about. How do we find the rhythm and the sacredness of what is the new ordinary? How do we look at the endings and the transitions and the beginnings that we all have going on numerous times each day? And I love, Karen, you talking about ancestors. One of the things I did this January was to do a trip with our students at St. Kate's down south, and we went to a couple of plantations, and to stand in that sacred space on that land, to be grounded in the land of my ancestors, was just a life source that I keep going back to. So one of the things that I keep asking myself now is what is going on with me, and I think self-awareness. One thing I teach my students, self-awareness is where it always begins. And so how am I taking care of myself during this challenging time? And some of you know that I have been diagnosed with COVID. And so I woke up this morning and thought, I have the breath to do this today, because each day is a new experience physically and emotionally. And I was so excited to feel that I had the energy and the breath to do this and be in this community, because that is also life-giving. And what it does is that it really has helped me start to think more about what you were talking about, Ravi, discernment, and to also sink into a space of I don't know, and to really get comfortable with that. I don't know what each day holds, and at times I don't know what each hour holds. And so how do we as companions journey with others, and not only ourselves be comfortable with that I don't know, but to help our students be comfortable with that, and to be able to live into that posture, into that sacred space with those that they also are serving and teaching. And so I think it's so important that we do our own work, that we are aware of where we are and what we have the capacity to do, how we have the capacity to sit with others, And when we don't have it, to be honest enough to step away, to not do harm to ourselves or to others. And to know that when we have to step away, to do more of what nourishes us, what we talked about in the very beginning with that question I posed. Not just to do it, but to do more of it, because at that point we really need that more. So the question I pose to you now is, how can I be a healing presence to myself and to then others? How can I be a healing presence to myself and then to others? So I invite you in silence to just ponder that. These are beautiful. I'm always amazed, but not amazed at the generosity and the going deep that we do with each other in such a quick fashion. And I think this going inward is so necessary before we go outward to be a healing presence to others. Stephen, can you read some of these?
Yes, yes. And we have such an amazing community. So thank you all. You are the heart of this whole effort. And I'm reminded of two things. One, the English metaphysical poet and the Dean of St. Paul's, John Donne, said in a sermon once that no person, I'm changing that, no person is an island entire of itself. Each is a part of the continent, a part of the main. And I'm also reminded of the very practical thing that we don't get to experience much now, which is that first you put the mask over your face and then you take care of your kid in the airplane.
Right.
Oh, that is, your question was so rich, it was enough. Let me read some of these. I saw someone said dancing the Nirvanic dance, which I'm not familiar with, but I wish I knew it so I could dance it right now. Another one said that very famous quote, I don't have it right in front of me right now, the Rilke quote about treasuring the questions and letting the questions be enough. Another one is referring to John O'Donoghue's Beauty, another amazing poet. To nourish my want to see the beauty around me, to accept the loving embrace of beauty, which is the face of God. Intentional breathing, says Steve. Inhale in acceptance and exhale surrender. Self-compassion, and in that, an expanding willingness to feel fear and sadness, and then connection to others. Isn't it amazing how strong it can make us feel to acknowledge our weakness? Love that paradox. Linda says, thank you. This is just a thank you to you, Ravi, Cynthia, and Karen for all you do, for your great gifts to us today. Prayers to you, Cynthia, for your healing. Thank you, and for being with us today. Stay well. You are each a blessing. Cindy says she grounds herself by short meditations in nature, limiting the news consumption and the sources of news, and reaching out for more one-on-one conversations than usual. Music, singing, hymns. Beth says, turns out I love washing my hands and see it as a healing act, and it is, Beth. Amen, you're right. Talk about what Ravi was talking about, the ordinary. That's one ordinary thing we get to do even more of. Aaron's says, permission to do nothing. Jane says, I picture myself sitting on a park bench with Jesus, holding his hand and just being. Blessings to all of you. Amen.
And I love this one from Pamela that says, extending grace to myself for not having it all figured out, for not having found the rhythm yet, for having feelings of anxiety, fear, uncertainty, establishing a rhythm that embraces the routines I have discovered that nourish me. I think it's so important that we begin with that awareness, because as companions, we ask our people to journey with us, and we ask them to go to the deepest core of who they are. And it's so important that we model that we don't ask them to do anything we aren't willing to do. So self-awareness is key. Let's just take a couple of minutes to honor all that you've shared with each other, all the sacredness that is scrolling on the screen. Thank you, Ravi.
Yeah. Phrase from scripture keeps coming to my mind, for such a time as this. I think for such a time as this, we as soul caregivers, spiritual companions are here. We know how to hold space. We know how to serve. We are learning how to take better care of ourselves. For such a time as this, that you and I and we and SDI exist and have been called. It's a unique position, role for us. And we can't do this alone. We cannot do this on our own. So find creative ways to stay connected. Find creative ways to find soul companionship for yourself. Find creative ways to do what you're doing and taking care of yourself. So this is more a call just to remind ourselves that who we are, what we do is so needed for ourselves, for our communities, for our world, and to find ways to nourish that spark in you and me. And when I get discouraged, or I am panicked. Maybe one of you will reach out to me. So I keep listening. Who is coming, rising in my mind today that may need a text, may need a call? There is more than enough work to do in our own lives, in our communities. And for such a time as this, we are called to do that. And we are called to be there for each other, for ourselves. Just for a moment, rest in that and see where your body, your spirit is saying you need to pay a little more attention. If you have comments, you can put them. If not, we'll be in silence for a little more. I'm going to invite Karen for closing.
All of us who are here on this call today are from different parts of the country, the continent, the globe, and some of us are turning toward sundown and the Sabbath, the Jewish Sabbath. And so to close, I want to invite you all to be in that turning toward Shabbat, the Sabbath, that sacred resting time, with a chant. And nobody will hear you. So I want each of you to feel free to participate in whatever way you want to. Don't worry about butchering the words. They're 4 Hebrew words, or humming along or just drinking it in. But I want to make a special invitation to people who maybe hold your own voices back because you're worried it doesn't sound good, because God hears the beautiful melody of every single person's voice, even if that melody is silence. So I'm going to put in the chat box right now the words. Ufros alein sukat shlomecha, your canopy of peace and wholeness. It's a piece of the liturgy. So if you can just imagine for a moment, we are all together, opening our hearts and asking the divine, please spread over us, over all of us, your sukkah, your canopy, your shelter of shalom, of peace and wholeness. And we're going to chant this 4 times with some space in between. Ufros aleinu sukat sukat shalomecha Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Sukkot Shalom Echa Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Sukkot Shalom Echa Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Sukkot Shalom Echa.
So I just want to thank everyone for the time together. I know as a director and as a teacher, I always say that any session I'm in, any class I'm in, I think I get more than I ever believe they received from me. So thank you from all of us. Thank you.
We are grateful to have shared this time with you today. I'm grateful to Ravi and Cynthia and Karen. My name's Stephen Crandell. I work for SDI, one of the best jobs I've ever had. And I'll leave you with these words. Choose love, for when you choose love, the universe becomes more loving. Forgive, for when you forgive, the universe becomes more forgiving. Join, participate in healing with any other being, with all other beings, with God, however you might name the being, the ground of all being. For when you participate in healing, the universe heals. Thank you all. Take care. Peace be with you.